Today we are talking about empathy and how important it is in the world as evolution changes the way business works and changes the dynamics of society. I was out earlier walking around the Capitol campus here in Helena, Montana, and there was an old man standing there admiring the Capitol dome. And a lot of times when I'm walking around, I don't talk to anyone. Usually, if you pass someone on the sidewalk, you don't have anything to say to them. You just kind of mind your business, don't really pay them much mind, and go your way. That's just how it works. But for some reason, we caught each other's attention, and he was admiring the Capitol building, and I was taking a picture of it, and we started talking about different things. And next thing you know, there I was having a conversation with an old man about the work we'd done and the work I do and the courses our lives have taken. And it was just a really elegant, pleasant conversation. And next thing you know, quite a while had gone by and we were just chatting there on the sidewalk. I thought it was pretty cool. In any case, he was talking about how there was a time when he was younger when most people had cars, but there were still a few people who might have a couple horses and a cart, because cars, they were common, but they were also occasionally, people didn't have one, right? It was kind of like for me, when I was a kid, the computer was around. There were personal computers in people's homes, but it was pretty common to live in a household that maybe didn't have a computer. And it was a time before cell phones were a thing. So, well, times have changed, right? And he was talking about how his life work had been to do legal stuff as a lawyer. And he was talking about how one thing that he was taught was that you have to learn how to listen. He said when he was starting to practice law, he would have a conversation with a client, and his conversations tended to be fairly short. And then someone asked him, how long do your consultations go? And he realized he wasn't spending very much time, right? He was just collecting information, doing a kind of a quick survey, checking the boxes, and then he wasn't actually listening. And so he started to make a conscious decision that his consultations needed to be at least 90 minutes long so that he could talk to people and get the whole story and listen for all of the nuance and the finer details. And I thought that was, such a good point, because we often listen so we can respond instead of listening so that we can understand. And then we were talking about how AI has continued to grow and technology is changing the way we do business and the way our roles work and things like that. And I was talking about how interesting it is that in every part of society, we're getting to a point where technology is replacing people. AI is able to do a better job at a lot of things than the average person is. So how do we stay relevant? How do we have a place in the world when the computers are smarter than we are? When we can talk to the computers and they will talk back to us, and there's more and more situations where, maybe a chatbot would be better at understanding the law than an actual student of the law. And what it comes down to is empathy. And it comes down to loving others. And it comes down to serving something greater than yourself. Because the truth is that even though we might get to a point where computers are better at most things, and automation is better at most things than people still have a desire for human connection. We still benefit from connecting with each other. Maybe a computer can know, what is the best way to treat a disease. Maybe a artificial intelligence applied with robotics could do a better job of doing open heart surgery. But when you're sitting there in bed and you are mortally wounded, chances are you want a real person to be there with empathy and care and concern and bedside manner and all of that. So how do we future-proof ourselves? Well, it's all about caring about people. It's about having that attitude of being willing to invest in generosity for its own sake, when you don't stand to necessarily gain anything from it, when you're not getting ahead in any particular way. You're just showing kindness, empathy, care, and concern because it's the right thing to do. It's treating others as you wish they would treat you. And when you do that, then you're developing a skill, which is probably going to become the most important skill that exists in the marketplace and ecosystem of things. And it's kind of crazy to think about how we talk about all of these complicated things that are really hard to master, like learn how to code, learn how to practice medicine, or learn how to get a degree in some particular thing that is complicated and difficult to learn. Those can be valuable, but there are also things that might wind up getting to be done by artificial intelligence or machine learning or something like that. But can you be the right kind of a person? That's the question. Can you be a person who loves others? Can you be a person who is generous with your time to others? Can you be a person who puts yourself in the shoes of others and doesn't poke and jab and try to find ways to criticize other people or throw them under the bus or be passive aggressive to people? Can we be kind and patient and good listeners and the kind of people who make others feel better about themselves instead of diminishing others so that we can elevate ourselves? These are the kinds of things which computers aren't going to, in the near future, be able to replicate. Like, yes, maybe you can have a chatbot that can pretend to be empathetic or can know how to act like it cares, but the reality is human connection isn't replaced by a machine. When I have a genuine conversation with another person and we talk about life and we share those perspectives, that's totally different from ChatGPT. And as long as there's human beings, human connection is going to be a thing. It's going to be meaningful. People are going to care about it, and it's going to be something that if you're able to be the right kind of person, you're going to have a skill that computers are not going to be able to take away from you. It's just simple, but it's worth mentioning that we're increasingly kind of at the mercy of change. Technology is changing, and there's so much going on in the world that's just very dramatically different from anything that's ever happened before. And yet some of the old timeless things. Those are the things that are going to wind up maybe helping us out in the end. I think about folks like Warren Buffett. They say, Warren Buffett would say, work for people you love and invest in things that you love, and be, be a person who, is trustworthy. Simple stuff, right? Buy stocks of companies with good fundamentals, like simple things, right? Like, it's not anything that's rocket science. It's just build your life on principles that endure. And if you do that, then you're going to wind up coming out ahead. And in a world where people are ego driven, if you have humility, then you're going to wind up having something to offer that others wouldn't have. If you can read the room and you can understand the nuance of being sensitive to how other people feel, if you can be able to kind of look at both sides of a perspective and see, why do people do the things they do? I'm not saying you make excuses for people, but can you have empathy to understand why they do what they do and care about them and forgive them for their flaws and be supportive, instead of being cynical or critical. Those kinds of things, they just matter a lot. And I think as we go through so much change in the economy and society and everything, it's going to be those traditional values that are going to set people apart. We've increasingly moved into a time where we like to hide behind screens, and you look around at a neighborhood and you realize, like, people aren't on the street, people don't walk around, people don't talk to each other, people just kind of hide. They hide in their echo chambers, and they don't talk to each other, and they aren't good at communicating very much, and they just kind of hide in their houses and don't really engage. So if you can be a person who does engage, a person who does have a willingness to talk to people directly and to be honest and to be forthright and to not sugarcoat things or not present things in a way that is somehow different from the truth, to just be honest and straightforward, and to treat people in a way that makes them feel seen and valued and respected, well, then yes, the world is going to change, and yes, there's going to be a lot that happens that is beyond your control, but you're going to have something going for you. And I was also thinking about how, you get old, right? And we get old, we run out of time, all of the above, right? So what do you do? Like, how do you handle that? How do you reconcile the fact that, like, if you're 85 years old, then how do you reconcile the fact you don't have unlimited time? Like, how do you still get up every day and have a sense of purpose and have a sense of goal setting and all of that? Well, I mean, the same way anybody would, right? Because the truth is, I could easily be dead tomorrow. I mean, none of us are assured to have anything more than this current present day that we have. So how do we create a commodity that's useful, that's shareable, that's transferable, that's productive, when all we really have is right now? All we have is the present. Then what can we do? Well, what we can do is we can be stewards, and we can serve others by being generous with our time, being generous with our compassion, by being generous with our insight, to help other people by giving them our perspective and our wisdom and all of those things. Not because we're going to get something out of it, not because we're going to be able to find some sort of an inroad or play politics or something like that, just for the sheer exclusive purpose of sharing, because that's what the human experience is about. sharing perspectives with others and connecting with others. Even if you like this conversation I was having with a guy on the street earlier. It's not like I'll probably never see the guy again. And that's okay. Because that amount of time that we spent having a genuine conversation that was thought-provoking and enjoyable and stimulating, inspiring, well, that's in and of itself, that's a fulfilling, rewarding thing. And I'm privileged by the fact that, he was generous to give me his time, and we were able to, have a good conversation. Those are the kinds of things, right? Like if you can get up every day and just try to, in some way share perspective that could be helpful to somebody else. No, you're not moving mountains. You're not doing something that's going to look super heroic or noteworthy on paper, but you are being an ambassador of goodwill in the world. And if you do that, there's always going to be a place for you. Wherever you go, there's always going to be something you can do to uplift the human spirit and to make other people feel more seen and more valued, and to cherish the day. When you start looking at life as a thing that's filled with blessings, then it doesn't really matter whether it rains or shines. It doesn't matter if you're young or old. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is. There's always an opportunity to be a lighthouse, to be a beacon, instead of being discouraged and discouraging others. So as we try to figure out our place in the world, going through change, navigating all of that, just remember, the fruits of the Spirit are love and patience and long suffering and things like that, right? So don't worry so much about being the most qualified person in the room. Focus instead on being the person in the room with good values. If you live your life by the kind of values that you would want to see in somebody else, then you're probably going to wind up having a life that's filled with examples of doing good and making other people's lives better. And I think a lot of the people who do make other people's lives better, they do a lot of little things that people will remember for the rest of their lives. Acts of generosity and patience and kindness and love and all of that. And they don't even necessarily see that they have done anything at all. Because a lot of people will measure value in terms of, how much money have you made or something like that. But the reality is the things that really will be remembered are just simple stuff, like taking time for somebody. Like I remember a long time ago now, but, I came home from work and I had a pipe that had burst in my garage, and there's water pouring everywhere. And I called up this guy I knew who was a lodge brother, and, he just helped me fix this pipe that was broken, and we patched it up and got it fixed. And, he was just a retired guy, willing to help out. And it doesn't seem like it's that huge of a deal, but it was one thing that, I'm talking about it now, quite a few years in the future, so made a difference, right? Like it's interesting though, isn't it? Like you think, like, what are the things that you remember the most? The moments that were the most special, meaningful, cherished moments of your life. If you think about them, many times they aren't the biggest moments. They're just little nuggets of hope that were given to you by someone who could have been closed off, who could have just went their way, but instead they chose to be generous in a way that made you feel valued and seen and validated. And that's, that's a huge gift to stop focusing so much on trying to make yourself look good and instead focus on helping others to see good in themselves. Always remember that a candle loses nothing by sharing its light with another candle. In any case, as always, good luck on your adventure. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.